My name is Charlie, and I'm with Crew 22A. Reverend Gregory Douglas is a pastor of the Native American United Methodist Church of Southern California, located in Anaheim. He also leads the Native American Fellowship of Los Angeles and is an elder of the California Pacific Conference of the United Methodist Church. Pastor Greg was born in Downey, California, and grew up in Orange County. He graduated from Cal Poly Pomona and received his Master of Divinity degree from Fuller Theological Seminary in Pasadena. His father is of Scottish descent by way of Kansas. His mother's family traced its roots to the Cherokee Nation, what later became Tennessee and North Carolina. The family migrated to Kansas following the forced removal of the Cherokees from their homeland in the 1830s. Greg is not an enrolled member of any tribe, but he has strong ties to the Native American community of Southern California. He will share with us today his thoughts on Native American spirituality and Christian theology, as well as the diversity of the Native American community.
Osio, or welcome, good morning. My name is Reverend Gregory Douglas. I'm a pastor here at Native American United Methodist Church, and I'm happy to try to share with you some things that are not only a part of this church, but also part of a variety of Native American nations and tribes. One of the things we're going to want to keep in mind, of course, is there are not only a variety of nations and tribes, but a variety of views and ceremonies and what some might call spirituality. But we want to remember that for most Native American nations and tribes and peoples, it wasn't a specific spirituality or what we might call a religion. It was a sense of it was a part of their everyday life. We were to look at, let's say, the Northeast. In many of the tribes, such as we often refer to the Sioux or the Dakota, Lakota, Nakota peoples within there, including possibly the Ponca and many others, you have a view of what is called walk-on. We often have heard the term walk-on Tonka for what we often refer to as God. But their view of walk-on was, in a sense, all things are sacred, and we need to treat them as such. We are Mitsikoye Oyasin, which is all our relatives, or we are all related. So in a sense, the life which has given life to me gave life to this grass and life to these plants. And within that, in a sense, even, let's say, an example of this hand drum, it has life because this was, a sense, a part of something. And in order to make this, an offering had to be made in order to keep everything in balance. And then the sense that it now sounds a lot like our heartbeat. And so can become the heartbeat of the people. And so they would always remember that these things and that sound was walk on. And so that's why they would make things in a sense, even their what we might call a drumstick, they would make, like this one has been made from a branch, and it would be made not only with care, but in a direction to remember that it grows deep within the ground and rises up into the sky. And so they would remember those things to not only keep them as a part of the way you keep life in balance, but the way that we should walk with creation, walk with our Maker, and walk with each other. Now we began, of course, you might have noticed that I used sage and offered sage in 4 directions because they would often recognize in what sometimes was referred to now as a directional prayer. It would recognize those directions. It would begin facing east. In many tribes, such as the Cherokee people, when they would get up in the morning, they would face east to pray. And quite often go to a source of water, what they would call going to water. And that is how they would begin their day, such as being born. But now you're being born into a new day. And so that was to permeate all of their life and activities. And so I began with the sage in this area, we're in the area of the Tongva people. And the sage would be normal or natural for this region, so they would find this as a gift and use this gift, remembering that the plant would grow deep and be nourished within the earth, grow into a plant that as we grow, but then its smoke can rise like our prayers. In a sense, it rises as our prayers. And so things don't always have to be spoken, but they can be a part of, such as this burning of this sage. Now, the Kiowa, let's say, is another example. Now in the Midwest area, they would use cedar, because that would now be a gift that Creator has given to them. And so they would use and respond and pray with cedar. So there are a variety of things that might be used, but they're often what is associated with that area. Now, I also have here, in a sense, a pipe. And I've already, in a sense, put it together. Ours is not specifically the pipe that was made for this church, a Lakota or Dakota type ceremony pipe. It would be a little bit different. This one, some often refer to as well as it's a peace pipe, brought in to maybe make peace between us and Creator God, or peace between us and one another. And that can be, and in a sense, even within Christian liturgies, there is a sense of the passing of the peace, or the making of peace. And we are told, don't come and bring your offerings unless you've made peace with one another. Or if you have something against someone, leave your offerings and go make peace. So we begin often our church services with the bringing in of the pipe. Part of the ceremony of the pipe is actually the pieces are not stored together. They're in we might call a sacred pouch. They're taken apart inside that bag. And then they're brought back together. As part of the ceremony is bringing things together, putting things together. And in a sense, that's our call by Creator God, is to bring things together. Now, if this were to be smoked in a sense, then it would be passed amongst everybody that would be there. Why? Because the sense is not only is it rising up a prayer within that smoke, but it, in a sense, becomes a part of us. And as we breathe it out, it represents that prayer and that breath of life. So there are many pieces that are symbols within there that are all related to this sense of things have been given life, and even when they're now made into something else, or even if, let's say, someone is out hunting or farming or growing, when you harvest, or when you take a life, in a sense, to feed the family, an offering must be made to keep everything in balance. It might be an offering of tobacco. It's also an offering of prayer. It can be an offering of ceremony and dance. But everything must be there to keep things in balance. Another way to look at balance, we in the church have this mandala, this symbol. Many would call it, in a sense, it is a medicine wheel. The idea of medicine within Native American spirituality or view is that in order to make things whole or complete, or what we might call well, there is the use of medicines. We use in our modern view, we take medicine in order to sometimes get rid of a disease or something to help us be well again. But the idea behind it, Mandel in a sense, is that there are not only the four directions, which is the way that it is put together, but there is the hoop, which represents the completeness or the wholeness of the people. And there, in this one, there are four colors. Often, many refer to it as the four major colors of the people of the earth. Well, if they're then all together, all my relatives, then we would have a better view of what is complete and whole. And in that sense, to those in the northeast, that would become Wakan, would become sacred, become holy. In those within, let's say, the southwest, they're a very different view in the sense that they would have prayer places, and a variety depending on the nation or tribe, but their sense was they would need to go to those places of prayer, offer those ceremonies and offer those prayers in order to be a participant, if you will, of keeping the world going. And so they would not only recognize, as all of them do, the seasons, but they recognize those sacred places. Another way to kind of look at some things is often in church, I play this flute. And a man, very gifted and talented, that makes it. Many would view this in a sense that it is no longer alive because the wood has been taken. But this wood not only had life, represents life, but now the breath that we would share through it is life. And so it becomes that part of life and, in a sense, our prayers. So that's a little bit of what we have as a part of our services or ceremonies. So we would treat it not in great respect, but in a sense as representing prayer life. I'd share, this is an eagle's wing. They often view the eagle, which flies high, can carry our prayers to Creator. Carries off many things for us. But this was gifted to me from a jingle dancer within the church. And the jingle dance is a very specific dance. It was designed and given to the people for healing. It was a healing dance. It was given to a man to bring to the tribe so that they would bring healing to his daughter. In a sense, is all those sounds, not only on here, but within all the jingle dress dancers, those sounds are all prayers. So in a sense, what I would try to share with you today is there's so many connections between, in a sense, what here is a Christian church and many of the native ceremonies and traditions, if you sense the sense of spirit that come together, sense of walk-on, the sacred that is in everything, and the four directions versus within the church we often view as in the sense of the Trinity. The same essence, the same sacredness, the same sense that makes up one. So when he thought that they had many deities, they had many directions, many gods, many of this, but it was actually their view is, but it is all one. So what I wanted to, in a sense, just share with you today is we are all one in the view of many of the tribes. We are all relatives. We are related to everything, and so we need to care for everything. Everything we do and make, everything it represents, not only our gifts, our life, but they are gifts given to us from the one. And so we want to make sure that we would carry that on with each other through God and through Christ. Amen.